My name is Trey and welcome back to Reload Reacts. Today we are going through r/Maliciouscompliance, where people take advantage of the broken systems they're placed in. This next post is by the Dragon Doji. My wife recently performed some tasty malicious compliance, so I thought I'd combine it with her previous malicious compliance from 6 months previous. My wife works in the finance department for a government contractor. They're hybrid, but mostly all work from home due to limited office space, with the expectation her team is on site Monday and Tuesday. In this role, she has a busy end of month every month, with the whole team working to post figures, and is often required to work late into the evening or even a few hours on the weekend to finalize the month end. This is important for later. Due to insane commuter traffic, she prefers to start at 7 and finish at 3 PM, so that the commute is 30 minutes instead of an hour or more, each way just sitting in congested traffic. 6 or so months ago, Mangleman issued an edict requiring core hours 8 to 4 when in the office and more in office days. My wife emails management stating that requiring her to sit in traffic for a wasted additional 4 to 5 hours a week would mean her evening and weekend flexibility would no longer be available. Cue a management response of team player blah blah blah. My wife responds with a breakdown of time within her paid 40-hour week and how the flexibility established and continued since COVID has benefited the team. But as that flexibility is being reduced, it has a natural effect on her flexibility. They insist. So she leaves the office after core hours, gets stuck in traffic and suddenly misses the end of day Teams call. Of course, Mangleman doesn't appreciate this reality, but she has emails of their insistence, can't control traffic patterns, and Mangleman don't want to reschedule the meeting earlier. If they want her on call, either she reverts to her original schedule or enters into overtime to take it in the office. They suggest her previous schedule for the foreseeable future to aid team cohesion. Recently, her Mangleman decided that all overtime has to now be approved by a direct line manager. Cue to last week. My wife has been exiting meetings on the dot at the hour. Sorry, I've got a hard stop now due to no approved overtime. Bam! Drops from the meeting. She's even started to affect other team members, with her and a couple of colleagues ceasing work on the dot due to not approved. Management is of course on the hook for incomplete end of month figures and starts inquiring. The team replies with the overtime edict. All overtime to require manager approval. It wasn't pre-approved, so I stopped working to adhere to the new policy. My wife mentioned they haven't responded to this yet, but it's been weeks already. All of this after management still hasn't backfiled an open department position for 5 months, so they're down an additional person. I am now thoroughly enjoying her work stories and think reading this sub to her over the years may have had a positive impact. This next post is by Froglet. Years ago, when I worked at a major chain convenience store, we had mystery shoppers, hired by corporate, that would come in and secretly evaluate the store. Employees' pay depended on these evaluations. I worked an overnight shift, 10 PM to 6 AM alone. That's important because the mystery shopper evaluation list included asinine things like hot fresh coffee, roller grill full, etc. Not having them would cause you to be docked points and thus not get raises. Now if you've ever worked in this kind of job, you know that is just silly during those hours of the night when there are few and far between customers. The idea is to balance availability against waste. But after 2 rounds of my day, co-workers getting raises, and I didn't because per store policy I didn't make extra coffee or roller grill items during the night, I spoke to my boss about it. I understand this is corporate policy, and I also understand that our store policy is to not do this at night. What can I do as a night shift worker to get a better evaluation? Something along those lines. Not adversarial or anything. The boss told me, just make sure you get full points on every line. That is your only job. And handed me another valuation list to study. Okay, cue malicious compliance. For the next couple of weeks, I made sure to make fresh coffee, decaf and regular roast at 10 PM when I got to work, and fully stock the roller grill, hot dogs, jalapeno sausage dogs, taquitos, etc. Then at midnight, when exactly none of this stuff had actually sold, I closed the doors and went to stock the coolers. This took around an hour and is just something that's done on night shift. So at around 1 AM, I would then toss all the roller grill items and pour the coffee down the drain, and make 2 fresh pots and restock the grill and reopen the doors. And then at 4, I would dump it all and make fresh again because it had been there for 2 hours. The boss called me in and told me as long as I got 10s on all the other items, I would be getting my raise along with everyone else from then on. Just for fuck's sake, stop wasting $100 a night of stuff that doesn't sell. No problems, boss. Thanks. Too bad you didn't notice the issue until it cost your bottom line. This next post is by Arkelion. About 10 years ago, I worked for a small web hosting company. Initially, I was hired as entry-level support, taking calls from customers that accidentally broke their websites or needed passwords reset. Then, I worked my way up to team lead, where I was working with SSL certificates and cloud hosting accounts for high-value customers. Finally, they moved me to the marketing team after they found out that I had an English writing degree. This was my first copywriting job and a huge step in my career, as I am still a copywriter to this day. I remember being overjoyed when I accepted the position and thought, I'm never taking another angry phone call for the rest of my life. Cue to about a year later, I'm writing blogs, emails, video scripts, and most importantly, not taking phone calls. I'm at my desk in the marketing department, and in walks the team lead that took my position after I was promoted. We'll call her Ruth. Side note, I objected to Ruth being promoted into my old role because she's extraordinarily bullheaded and rude. She would repeatedly overstep her boundaries as an entry-level tech, telling other employees where they could and couldn't go to lunch, and trying to manage the call queue when her only job was to take said calls. Ultimately, my concerns went unheeded and she got the job. Ruth walks up to my desk and sets a bulleted list in front of me. It's a vague business strategy she's written up. Essentially, the cloud hosting division of the company is rapidly expanding, and the CSO tasked Ruth with figuring out how to field all of the additional high-value customers. Ruth's solution? I resume some of my responsibilities as a tech team lead to take escalations from angry cloud customers. I said absolutely not. She completely ignored me and just kept going over her strategy. Like literally I'm saying, no Ruth, I'm not doing this. And she's like, Anyway, as you can see here, when a tech needs to escalate a call, it will come to you. I was fuming. But patiently explained that I was on the marketing team now, and my tech support days are over. She said, well, I checked the roles and responsibilities section in the company handbook, and there's nothing that says the marketing team doesn't directly work with clients. She then gave me a shit-eating grin and says, we'll have to get a phone installed at your desk, and leaves. I was fucking livid. I'd be going from no phone calls to specifically only taking calls from the angriest customers we have. Then, as I was recounting this awful situation to one of the graphic designers, something dawned on me when I remembered what she said about the roles in the company handbook. As the only copywriter, I was the one in charge of managing and updating the handbook. The graphic designer saw this realization on my face and was like, "Oh man, please do what I think you're gonna do." So I logged into Evernote, or whatever system we were using to manage and edit the handbook, and added a subsection to the marketing team's roles and responsibilities that specifically said, "We do not take phone calls, emails, or have any direct interactions with customers." This also safeguarded the graphic designers and videographers from any future bullshit from Ruth. I took the charges to the CSO, who gave me a smirk and signed off on the edits. I then took the signed changes to Ruth and set them on her desk. Yeah, it actually does say in the company handbook that the marketing team can't take calls, as you can see here. I guess you'll have to figure something else out. She stared daggers at me, but I just shrugged and left. That was the last of our interactions. She ended up poaching some top performers from the entry-level tech team to make a dedicated cloud team that never really functioned well. And she ultimately quit without a 2-week notice a few months later. So I got some extra "I told you so" satisfaction about her not being qualified for the job as well. I still haven't taken a single customer phone call since I became a copywriter, and I intend to keep it that way. This next post is by Long Jackfruit. Years ago, before Sports Authority went out of business, I worked there as the hardline/receiving manager of one of their stores. Terrible company, I'm glad they went out. They were positively obsessed with the possibility of employee theft. Understandable, I know, but don't be such shitheads and you might lower your chances. Unloading a truck at the store, for some bizarre reason, required someone to stand at the dock plate while the seal number was called in. Never understood why. One day, the guy assisting me with the unload couldn't find the phone number to call the seal number where it was written on the desk for some reason. I stepped off the dock plate, not even fully sure I stepped off camera, but stepped off the dock plate to yell at him where it was. Location ops manager, glorified head cashier, gave me a warning, I guess. I think her name was Robin, and she essentially had battered wife syndrome with her job. Okay, I'll stand on the dock plate. Except, I have ADD, get bored easily, and have a pendant for acting inappropriately in situations. Cue up dancing on the dock plate and riding an imaginary horse while the person calls in the seal number. Did I mention I suck at dancing? Ops manager decides I'm not taking this with all the seriousness she can conjure up and reports me to district loss prevention manager. Shows him tape of me dancing in the dock plate and asks him what they are going to do about it. It got back to that. His response was, "Nothing. He's doing exactly what we told him to do." W manager right there. This next post is by Coffee Brew Crew. So back in October, we noticed our drive-through drawer was slowing down, and the last time this happened it basically meant it needed to be cleaned/lubed up again since we use it a lot. What we usually have to do to get any traction and action is submit a ticket online so it can be logged and hopefully worked on. Now I say hopefully because, well, the system is dog shit. You can submit tickets for anything for software issues, slowness with internet, physical issues that have to be fixed, etc. But getting some action for 80% of anything you submit requires some luck and hopefully getting someone who wants to help you out on the other end. To counter this and make things go smoother, we'd typically get in touch with management and they'd check in on the tickets as well, so it would hopefully get taken care of sooner and not get higher in the severity list, which then may lead to an emergency and extra billing. We did have a great assistant manager that I could talk with and work together on this, and we had a great rapport. But he left early November because the newish store manager of a year basically drove out a lot of the old staff with severe micromanaging and cock-blocking them on promotions, and she was a stickler on costs on the store. We asked to get 2 keyboards replaced, and that was a headache as is. So since he was gone and it's just the store manager, I tried to talk to her about it and give her a heads up, and was just met with, just submit the tickets and resubmit it if nothing happens. So just to make sure all was good, I copied the ticket numbers, sent an email and copied my pharmacy manager on it. I made sure to resubmit the tickets and also ask, so you don't want me to tell you verbally or email from here on about any ticket issues, pharmacy problems or delays, correct? She replied back yes, so I didn't. So back at the drive-thru, we had someone come out and check on the drawer. They said it would have to get looked at for replacement, so I made a ticket, put in all the info that was needed and submitted it. Didn't say anything, just let people do their job they were supposed to do. Resubmitted it every 48 hours as the system allows you to bump it if nothing has been looked at, and did that for about 10 days with no action on replacement. Well, day 12 comes around and I open that morning, and as I was taking care of someone, the shelf didn't move. Had to have them come inside to get finished up, and we had to shut down the lane. So by this point, since it's down and we really need some movement on this, we submit a ticket for an emergency to get this on the record and addressed. When a claim is done as emergency, we're basically guaranteed to get someone in there in about 2 to 4 hours. However, it comes with all the charges that would make a frugal manager flip out about, with fees, premium time costs for service, etc. And then ordering the parts was done automatically instead of needing the manager approval because the need was there. So you best believe when the manager got the heads up that an emergency claim was put in, she nearly ran over to the pharmacy to ask why we didn't tell her something was happening. And I gently reminded her that she herself said in an email to not bother her with issues and submit tickets accordingly. And since it had been almost 2 weeks and now we cannot operate efficiently, we now had to take this route. I think when we do emergency options, our district manager also gets an email, but I'm not sure. I didn't hear anything from him though. The fallout was a huge bill for the store, since the system we had to get replaced was from a company that initially put in the system when the store opened in the early 2000s. So they had to custom make this drive-thru replacement because it wasn't the current model they produce. Had multiple visits to prep for the install, and as a cherry on top, the store got to hear a lot of complaints about drive-thru being shut down for so long, and if the scores don't look good there, bonuses get lowered too. I saw an invoice of some of the work, and the guy who was working on things was chill, but I think he quoted the drive-thru production around 25k because they had to put a rush on it. And that's not adding in the service fees and more. So a fix that could have casually been started at the first ticket and followed up on and finished sooner and for less cost, ended up costing maybe 3 to 4x the amount just due to the fees. Needless to say, the store manager has now conveniently asked me a few times here and there if there's any tickets in the system that need to be looked at. She's not my boss anyway, but that email chain is definitely saved in case it needs to be sent to our district manager if she thinks she can blame me for something in the future. Anyway, moral of the story is, take care of your shit early and listen to the workers and you'll save money. This next post is by Zumbo Prime. My department is technically on call, while not being paid a shift premium for it. Although, we do get other perks instead, so it isn't a big deal. The company make a small effort to try and call the people with the least amount of overtime first, and this is relevant. Well, we eventually found out that if we answer the call and are unable or refuse to come in, that time gets added to our overtime chart as if we'd actually worked it, and thus we'd be less likely to get overtime in the future, which really annoyed the money-hungry vultures. Whereas if we don't answer it and let it go to voicemail, our spot in the overtime chart is unchanged. I'm sure you can see where this is going. For some reason, half the department is no longer answering emergency calls, and nobody seems to know why. And being a corporate environment, asking the employees directly affected is only going to happen after multiple rounds of consultants are tasked with finding out why hell froze over twice, and several conflicting committees are formed to investigate the issue while competing for limited resources, sabotaging each other. This was r/malicious-compliance. If you enjoyed this, make sure to check out some other videos on the channel, and also make sure to hit that subscribe button because I post new Reddit content every single day.